What happens when Britain's most beloved morning show host finally loses her patience with Hollywood royalty? Well, you're about to find out, because what unfolded on live television was nothing short of explosive. This is the story of how Lorraine Kelly, known for her warm demeanor and professional composure, reached her breaking point during what should have been a routine celebrity interview. The aftermath left viewers stunned, producers scrambling, and one former royal storming off set. If you want to see how quickly things can go from friendly chat to full-blown confrontation, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered this whole mess. The morning started like any other at the ITV studios. Lorraine Kelly had been preparing for her interview with Meghan Markle, who was making the rounds promoting her latest venture. The producers had briefed Lorraine on the talking points, standard celebrity interview fare about new projects, life updates, and perhaps some light discussion about her ongoing media presence. Nobody expected what was about to unfold. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be joined by Meghan Markle. Lorraine began with her trademark Scottish warmth, settling into her chair opposite the former royal. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you for having me, Lorraine, Meghan replied, flashing that practiced smile viewers had seen countless times before. It's wonderful to be here. The first few minutes proceeded exactly as planned. They discussed Meghan's recent projects, her life in California, and her various charitable endeavors. Lorraine, ever the professional, asked the right questions and provided the perfect setup for Meghan's carefully rehearsed responses. But then something shifted. I have to ask, Lorraine said, leaning forward slightly. There's been quite a lot of discussion about your relationship with the British media. How would you say that's evolved? Meghan's smile flickered for just a moment. Well, Lorraine, I think everyone knows that the British press can be quite challenging. They've certainly had their narrative about me from day one. But surely, Lorraine continued, you understand that scrutiny comes with the territory. You marry into the royal family. I mean, we've all been through it with various members over the years. I'm sorry, but I don't think that's quite fair. Meghan's tone sharpened slightly. The level of scrutiny I faced was unprecedented, and frankly, often crossed the line into harassment. Lorraine nodded thoughtfully. I can appreciate that. It must have been difficult. But don't you think that perhaps, and I'm just asking this, genuinely, that some of the coverage was simply journalists doing their job, asking questions that the public wanted answered, doing their job? Meghan's voice rose slightly. Lorraine, with respect, I don't think you understand the full picture of what I went through. The constant invasion of privacy, the racist undertones, the deliberate misrepresentation of everything I said or did. I'm not dismissing your experience at all, Lorraine replied, maintaining her calm demeanor. But I've been in this industry for over 30 years, and I've covered the royal family extensively. Every member has faced intense scrutiny. Catherine faced it. Diana certainly did. Even the Queen herself wasn't immune to criticism. Meghan's posture stiffened. Are you seriously comparing my situation to Catherine's? Because if you are, that shows exactly the problem I'm talking about. I'm simply saying that media attention comes with the role, and perhaps, just perhaps, some of the negative coverage stemmed from decisions that were made rather than purely from prejudice. What decisions are you referring to exactly? Meghan's voice had taken on an edge that hadn't been there moments before. Lorraine paused, clearly weighing her words carefully. The atmosphere in the studio had shifted noticeably. Well, the interview with Oprah, for instance, many people felt that airing private family matters in such a public forum was, shall we say, unexpected. Unexpected. Meghan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lorraine, I was being destroyed in the press daily. My mental health was suffering. I was getting death threats. And you think it was unexpected that I finally decided to tell my side of the story. I understand you felt you needed to speak out, Lorraine said carefully. But surely you can see how some people might view it as, well, a breach of the family's privacy. A breach of privacy. Meghan's voice was getting louder. They were literally printing lies about me every single day. They were pitting me against Catherine in the headlines. They were questioning my child's heritage, and you're concerned about their privacy. The tension in the studio was now palpable. The camera operators exchanged glances, and producers could be seen moving nervously behind the scenes. This was clearly not going according to plan. Meghan, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, Lorraine tried to interject. "No, I think I understand perfectly," Meghan cut her off. "You're doing exactly what the British media has always done. You're minimizing my experience and suggesting that somehow I brought this on myself. That's absolutely not what I'm saying." Lorraine's voice remained steady, but there was a firmness creeping in. "I'm trying to have an honest conversation about a complex situation. Honest." Meghan's laugh was bitter now. "You want honest? Let's be honest then. You and everyone else in this industry built your careers off the backs of royal coverage. You made millions analyzing every outfit, every gesture, every word. And when someone finally pushed back against the narrative you all created, you can't handle it." Lorraine's expression had changed. The warm smile was gone, replaced by something much more serious. "Now hold on just a minute." "No, you hold on," Meghan interrupted, her voice rising. "I came here today thinking we could have a civilized conversation, but clearly you had your own agenda. You wanted to relitigate everything, to make me defend myself all over again." "I asked perfectly reasonable questions," Lorraine replied, her Scottish accent becoming more pronounced as her patience began to wear thin. "Questions that millions of viewers have been wondering about." "Reasonable?" Meghan stood up slightly in her chair. "You basically just accused me of lying about the racism I experienced. You suggested that I somehow deserved the treatment. God, how is any of that reasonable?" "I did no such thing." Lorraine's voice was getting sharper. "I asked you to consider that perhaps not everything was as black and white as you've portrayed it." "There it is," Meghan said, pointing at Lorraine. "Not everything is black and white. Do you hear yourself? Do you realize what you just said?" Lorraine blinked, clearly not catching the implication immediately. "I meant that situations can be complex, ... You used the phrase black and white when talking about racism." Meghan's voice was trembling with anger now. Either that was incredibly insensitive, or it was deliberate. "That's ridiculous," Lorraine shot back, her own temper finally starting to show. "You're twisting my words and you know it. Am I? Or are you just showing your true colors?" Meghan was fully standing now. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the kind of subtle, insidious behavior that I dealt with constantly." The studio had gone completely silent, except for their voices. Even the crew seemed frozen, unsure whether to keep filming or cut to commercial. "Right, that's quite enough," Lorraine said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The Scottish presenter had clearly reached her limit. "I've been doing this job for 3 decades, and I will not sit here and be accused of racism because you don't like the questions I'm asking." "Then maybe you should ask yourself why you're so defensive," Meghan fired back, still standing. "If you're not being racist, why are you so upset about being called out on it?" "Because it's a serious accusation that you're throwing around carelessly." Lorraine's voice was rising now, her professional composure cracking. "You can't just cry racism every time someone disagrees with you or asks you a difficult question. Cry racism." Meghan's eyes flashed dangerously. "Did you just say I'm crying racism? Do you have any idea how offensive that is?" "It's the truth," Lorraine shot back, now fully abandoning her usual diplomatic approach. "You've made a career out of playing the victim, and frankly, a lot of people are getting tired of it." The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. The studio was dead silent. Meghan's mouth fell open slightly, clearly shocked that the presenter had just delivered such a devastating blow. "Excuse me," Meghan's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of absolute fury. "You heard me," Lorraine continued, apparently deciding that if she was going to burn bridges, she might as well burn them completely. "Interview every appearance. It's the same story. Poor Meghan, misunderstood by everyone, treated unfairly by the institution, victimized by the press. At what point do you take some responsibility for your own actions?" "My own actions?" Meghan's voice was getting shrill now. "What actions?" "Marrying someone I loved, trying to do my job as a working royal, having the audacity to defend myself when I was being torn apart in the media." "How about the way you treated the staff at the palace?" Lorraine fired back. "The bullying allegations that you've never properly addressed. How about the way you handled your relationship with your own father? Or the constant briefings against other family members through your friends in the American press? Those are lies," Meghan said through gritted teeth. "Every single one of those stories was planted to make me look bad." "Were they though?" Lorraine leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed. Because it seems like everywhere you go, there's drama. In Hollywood before the royal family, during your time as a royal, and now, in your post-royal life, at some point, don't you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself what the common denominator is? Meghan was visibly shaking now. Whether from anger or shock, it was impossible to tell. I cannot believe you're saying this to me on live television. Well, you wanted honesty, Lorraine replied coolly. You said you came here for a civilized conversation. But what you really wanted was another platform to rehearse your grievances. Well, I'm sorry, but this isn't Oprah's couch, and I'm not going to sit here and nod along while you rewrite history. Rewrite history. Meghan's voice cracked slightly. I lived that history. I was there for every single moment of harassment, every racist headline, every coordinated attack. And you have the nerve to sit there and tell me I'm making it up. I'm not saying you made it up, Lorraine replied, her tone slightly softer but still firm. I'm saying you've chosen to interpret everything through the lens of victimhood. Yes, the press can be harsh. Yes, joining the royal family comes with scrutiny. But you knew that going in, and instead of adapting, you chose to fight a war you couldn't win, and then blamed everyone else when it didn't go your way. You think I chose to be racially abused? Meghan's voice was incredulous. You think I chose to have people question whether my child would be too dark? I think you chose to make everything about race when it wasn't necessarily about race, Lorraine replied, her words measured but cutting. Catherine was called Weighty Katie for years. She was mocked for her family's background, her mother's ambitions, her perceived social climbing. She didn't run to America to give Talal interviews about it. Catherine is white, Meghan said simply. She had privilege I never had. And there it is again, Lorraine said, throwing her hands up. Everything comes back to race with you. Maybe, just maybe, some of the criticism you faced was about your behavior, your attitude, your decisions, and not about the color of your skin. How dare you? Meghan's voice was deadly quiet now. How dare you minimize what I went through? You have no idea what it's like to be the only person of color in that family, in that institution, facing that level of scrutiny. You're right. I don't, Lorraine acknowledged. But I do know what it's like to be a woman in the public eye, to face criticism, to have my every move analyzed. And I've learned that sometimes the best response is to keep your head down, do the work, and prove the critics wrong through your actions, not your words. Keep my head down. Meghan's laugh was hollow. That's your advice? Keep quiet while they destroy you. I'm saying pick your battles, Lorraine replied. Not everything is a war. Not everyone is your enemy. Sometimes a difficult question is just a difficult question, not a racist attack. You're unbelievable, Meghan shook her head. You're literally gaslighting me on live television. I'm trying to have an adult conversation with you, Lorraine snapped back. But apparently, that's impossible, because in your world, anyone who doesn't immediately validate your perspective is either racist, a bully, or part of some grand conspiracy against you. That's not true, Meghan protested, but her voice lacked conviction, isn't it? Lorraine pressed on. Your own family, the royal family, the British press, the palace staff. Now me, we're all wrong, and you're the only one who sees things clearly. My truth is my truth, Meghan said, falling back on a phrase she'd used many times before. Your truth, Lorraine repeated, shaking her head. There's that phrase again. What about just the truth? What about considering that, maybe, just maybe, your perception of events might be colored by your own biases and insecurities? My insecurities. Meghan's voice rose again. You think this is about my insecurities? I think this is about a woman who had a fairy tale idea of what royal life would be like and threw a tantrum when reality didn't match the fantasy. Lorraine said, her words brutal in their honesty. And rather than taking responsibility for that disappointment, you've spent years blaming everyone else. The silence that followed was deafening. Meghan stood there, visibly struggling to process what had just been said to her. Carefully. Maintained composure had completely cracked, and for the first time, viewers were seeing her without the polished media training, without the prepared responses. I don't have to listen to this, she finally said, her voice barely controlled. No, you don't, Lorraine agreed. You can leave anytime you want, just like you did before. The words hit like a physical blow. Meghan's face went pale, then flushed. Red with anger, just like I did before. You mean when I left a situation that was literally destroying my mental health? I mean when you quit, Lorraine said simply.